Welcome to the Leading Generations podcast from Antioch Bible Baptist Church in Gladstone, Missouri. Each week, the podcast focuses on helping our church family live out its mission of leading generations to make disciples of Jesus Christ everywhere. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Leading Generations podcast. Thank you for joining us today. It's always good to see you, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to spend some time with us during the week. It's so good to have you here. It is the fourth Wednesday of the month, and so on the fourth Wednesday, we always are looking to interview staff members or missionaries or former staff members like we did last month. But today, we get the privilege to have Micaela Walker on the podcast with us. She is our elementary ed director. So welcome to the podcast today, Micaela.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so glad God brought you on staff at Antioch, and we'll get to that. But you've been a great addition to our team. How long have you been on staff at Antioch? Just while I'm thinking
April
about
will be 2 years.
April will be 2 years.
Coming up on 2.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, to get us going here today, we're going to do some quick hit questions just to get us talking to each other and get the conversation going. So in the morning, are you going to have coffee or tea?
Coffee all day. Not just the morning. That can be an all-day event. We drink coffee all day. So, yep.
So it's not just a morning
It's
event.
not just a morning thing.
You.
I'll do ice, still do hot all day long.
What's your favorite coffee?
Caramel anything is going to be, my son knows, caramel coffee. That's mom's drink order in any time. Awesome. So yes, the cold brew that we've started here, that is my go-to on Sundays. Now I love cold brew, but I'll do hot coffee when it's cold out too.
So do you make cold brew at home then?
I have tried
do you have like the caramel?
I don't have any of the fancy bougie things, but I have tried it. Andrew does a better job than I ever have, but it's good and it'll suffice. Sometimes I just ice my coffee and I just make it extra strong, and that works too. But,
that's good. So if you're going to stop and get coffee on the way to work, where are you going to stop at?
Probably Dunkin', which is a very frowned upon choice here on staff. I found I am in the minority here, but I really do like Dunkin'.
Everybody runs on Dunkin',
that's
right?
Right, that's right. So do moms apparently. So yes,
So
Dunkin'
if we're getting you a gift card, Dunkin' Donuts is where to get you.
Dunkin' is usually it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. If you and Garrett are going on vacation, are you guys going to choose the beach or the mountains?
Depends who gets to choose. I will choose the beach every time. I love the ocean. I love the sand. I love the relaxation. The mountains are fun. We like to hike and explore, but that's not relaxing. I don't feel recharged after hiking in the mountain for a day. The beach is what fills up that energy bar.
Did you go to the beaches growing up, or is it just okay?
Yeah, so we'll probably get into that. But I grew up on an island, like Long Island. So the beach was 15 minutes away every summer. If it was over 99 degrees, you got to go for free too. No parking, and so we went all the time. Yeah. Now we're in the middle of the Midwest, and it's less opportune here.
Has a beach.
Lake beaches aren't quite the same, but yes, the beach will always have a special place in my heart. So
neat.
Yep.
All right, one last one before we get to your story. If you're going to go out to dinner with the family, are you going to go to Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's?
As my son terms it, Chick-fil-A every time.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, the sauce, the chicken.
That's the proper pronunciation.
The Chick-fil-A. I think he can't read. It's not that deep, but yes, that is where we would go as a family. There's more options there too, as far as there's salads and things that we also enjoy if we're not in the mood for fried chicken, but Chick-fil-A.
So getting a kid's meal, Carter's probably going to down the kids' meal, right? Like
yes.
Nuggets?
Yes, nuggets and then sauce. He has his own order of sauce, and we make sure that comes every time, or it's not a good day at Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. So what's his sauce order?
Chick-fil-A, but like he'll have one for his nuggets and one for just like to drink on the side, essentially. So he needs his sauce.
I love that guy, man.
Oh, man. He's great.
We need to get him the sauces. I see at Sam's Club, you can get the...
We have them. Oh, yeah. We keep that in stock. That's how we get him to try pretty much any new meat. If it's served with a side of Chick-fil-A sauce, he'll try it. And it's usually okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Aldi's has a good knockoff brand.
They do.
Of that Chick-fil-A sauce.
It's like chicken dipping sauce or something. It's great.
Yeah. It is good. All right. So we know Dunkin' Donuts. the beach, and Chick-fil-A.
That's
that
it.
would be a
That's
dream.
me.
That's a dream day for
That's
you
the
guys.
dream.
All right, Micaela. Well, tell us a little bit about, you talked about being in Long Island, growing
Yes,
up there.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit
Sure.
about your story, your family. Love to hear that.
Yeah. So I was a pastor's kid. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. Actually, my dad was a youth pastor at Hallmark Baptist Church down in Fort Worth, which, to jump ahead to the story, he's back there now, and my brother-in-law is the youth pastor at that church now. So cool, full circle moment. There's a lot of things God ordained to bring that back around, but that's fun part of the story. But I was one, and he took a position as a lead pastor in Long Island, New York. So we moved. I wasn't even 2 yet. I know Hallmark because we've gone back so many times, and I visit them now, but that is not really where I grew up. I was in Long Island. I lived on Long Island till 8th grade. So it's a lot of formative years in New York.
Sure,
That's where I spent most of my childhood. And then in 8th grade, he took a new position in Illinois. Not the cool part like Chicago. I mean, middle of nowhere, cornfields and bean fields, Illinois, by Springfield. And that's where I did high school. So that was moved a little bit, but I enjoyed looking back, God's grace in my life to move those times, I think was the absolute best thing that could have happened. And parts of that story are hard things, but it was good. And so I've enjoyed both parts of my story of the country and the city life. But that's kind of where we moved. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. So my sister, she's 10 years older than me. And my brother's 7 years older than me. So I grew up as the baby, but when we moved to Illinois, I mean, I was basically the only child. We got to form that piece of my story without my older siblings there because they were married or in college or whatever that looked like. And so I got a little bit of both, a little taste of both, which was kind of fun. But yes, I was mostly a pastor's kid growing up. So
that's really neat. I mean, it is neat that you got to experience both the city and the country life in your growing up years.
When I moved to that small town, I wasn't used to everyone knew everyone there. And so it was very obvious when I moved that I was the pastor's kid at the church down the street from the school, right? So everyone kind of knew that. And then also I was the girl from New York. So I feel like 8th grade, I stuck out like a sore thumb in that school, but it was good. And I made friends, and I actually had a chance at making some sports teams because it wasn't so competitive because there was only like 20 girls that tried out and 20 could make the team. So I made the team, but I wasn't great yet, but it was really good. Those were some opportunities I don't think I would have had in New York because it was much more competitive, and I just felt like I had more chances in Illinois.
So what are your parents up to now?
So when I was in college, they took a change of careers, and my dad is now a missionary director to Africa, East Africa with Manna Worldwide. And so technically I'm an MK now, but that wasn't, I don't know if I can claim that because I was already an adult and I have my own life, but it's cool. It's cool that what they get to do. So they are the directors, which just means they go several times throughout the year to encourage the missionaries on the ground. They bring groups of churches to Africa and show them the centers and things that they have there. But they are also living in Texas. That's where their office building is. My mom is over the women's ministry of Manna, and so she'll travel and do women's conferences. And so they get to travel a lot in the States, but also abroad every year. They go back quite a bit. So,
and we get the opportunity as a church family to support them and be a part of their ministry. And
that was fun.
So it's thankful to be a part of a church that is generous to missions, faith promise giving, and so that we can be a part of what your mom and dad are doing
and
now.
It's fun. I mean, they got to come and stay at our house for the missions conference, and that's a fun thing too. I think if he was a pastor, they wouldn't get to travel as much to see us, and so I feel like I actually see them more now that they're directors to Africa than we ever did in Illinois. So that's fun. But,
that's great. Yeah. So tell us about your current family. Then.
Sure.
Give us.
So I'm married. My husband is Garrett. He's from here, Garrett Walker. He was born and raised at Antioch. And so we met in Bible college and moved back here after college. And now we have 2 kids. My oldest is Carter. He's 4. And then my youngest is Kinsley. She's 2.
Nice.
So.
How long you guys been married?
Coming up on 8 years this year. So That's
incredible.
Yes, I lied. We're coming up on 9. I'm so sorry. Oh goodness, it's okay. I don't think he watches the podcast, so it's fine. We're coming up on 9 years
I think
this year.
somebody will probably eventually get the word
Darn.
too.
Oops.
I feel like Garrett's a pretty forgiving guy.
He
though,
is.
too.
He's a gracious man.
He probably was like, yeah, it was.
He wouldn't have questioned it. Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
coming
just
up on
threw
9
yourself
years.
under the
I
bus.
did. You didn't. You didn't prep me for that question, I guess.
That's
Oops.
funny.
Yes. So we're coming up on 9 years this year. So
How long did you guys date? I mean, a lot of us have known Garrett, for a long time. So how long did you guys date, and how did that process go?
Oh boy. So we obviously met in Bible college. My freshman year, he actually took a year off. He's a grade older than me. So what would have been his sophomore year, he wasn't at school. And so I made friends, and I had this little circle of friends that happened to be a very similar circle of friends he was in the year prior.
Sure.
And so they all were like, man, we know this guy Garrett who's coming back next year. So I stalked him on Facebook my freshman year. I knew of him. I recognized him the first time he was on campus, and he had never met me before, which is kind of creepy, but that's the truth. So I had people being like, man, I think you guys would get along really well. And I had never dated anyone. And so I was a little skeptical about that whole process, right?
Sure.
So I was just kind of checking it all out. But he comes in my sophomore year. We were both sophomores at that point. And we're in quite a few classes together. And one of the classes was Botz's hermeneutics class. But he had us do that thing where you have to stand up and tell them an interesting fact about yourself. And everyone hates that part of the first day of class. But alphabetically, I went first, and then he came right after me. And so I went and I said, I was so stupid, but I was like, where are you from? I told him, and then I said, an interesting fact is I wanted to be a female Christian rapper when I grow up before I surrendered to ministry. And like, I'm just being silly. I'm trying to be funny. Yeah. He gets up and he tells me later that he was not listening. He was nervous. He had already planned what he was going to say, but he gets up and just says, I love Christian rap music. And when they came next to each other, I mean, the class erupted in like laughter. Kids were like banging on desks. It was anarchy. It was chaos in that room. And our professor said, there's an empty chair next to her. Why don't you come up and sit? And so Botz takes credit for part of our marriage. Like he feels like he was there. So that is how we met officially. And he apologized later in the cafe that day for like causing the chaos that had erupted from that time. But that is how we met officially. And then we talked for pretty much the whole semester. He was an officer at the school. He was on security at the school. And so he had, in December, written a parking ticket and put it on my car that says, you've got fine written all over you. And that was essentially how it started. I hate that I fell for that. My mom loved Hallmark movies, and we judged her and we hated him. And then I fell for one of the most ridiculous lines. He's gonna hate that I even shared this story, but that is officially how it started. And then I have a stack of tickets that he had written me over the course of a semester, essentially, and then
just with like those kinds of
just
notes
stupid things.
Yep.
It worked. I fell for it. I was a sucker for those, apparently. So, anyways, all of that, we started dating. We dated December through July, and then we got engaged in July, and then got married the following December. So it was a quick timeline. Sure. Very common at Bible college. No one else thought that was weird, but getting back immersed into like the real world after college, I was like, that was fast. But it honestly, it was great, and our parents loved him, and they loved me, and it worked out really well. And so we're heading into 9 years now. So it worked.
It worked. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the whole Christian rapper thing.
Oh worked, man, it was a solid foundation.
When you know, you know.
When you know.
When that Christian rapper comes along, it's just like, let's go.
He listens to country now. So honestly, it was a bait and switch for me. I feel like he really abandoned that one, but it's okay. So.
All right, well, thanks for sharing your family story with us. And again, love Garrett, love your kids. Hold a special place in our hearts for sure. So tell us a little bit then about how you came to Christ. You mentioned a call to ministry in there too. So I'd love to just sort of weave those together. Tell us that moment that Christ transformed your life, and then how you ended up going to Bible college and then ending up at Antioch on staff.
Okay. So I I mean, I grew up as a pastor's kid. My parents were faithful to preach the gospel day in and day out, but I also had a lot of adults in our church that shared the gospel with me. I think both of those things together were really helpful when I was young. Of this isn't just my parents' thing. Like this is real. This is something a lot of people buy into, right? My Sunday school teachers are telling me the same thing my dad is. And I think that was important. So I was 6 and I had made that connection. I jumped in my mom's bed one morning. And, kids know Jesus loves me. This I know, right?
Sure, right.
Those things are true. I knew that Jesus died on the cross. But that morning I jumped in my mom's bed and I was like, hey, last night you told me to clean my room and I shoved it under the bed. And I was like, that was a lie. And that's a sin, isn't it? And she was like, it is. And so I just made that connection that Jesus didn't just die on the cross for sins in general. He died on the cross for my sins. And it was at that point where I was aware. I couldn't have put into terms the fact that I felt conviction, or I didn't have that terminology, but my heart knew that that was wrong and Jesus died for that. And so that morning I prayed with my mom. She walked me through confessing my sins, not just to her, but to Christ, and asking him to be Lord of my life. And so I was about 6 years old, and that's when my relationship with the Lord started, which is a blessing and a privilege to look back on that. I'm thankful that I was born in the family that I was. That plays a big part of it. And so that's when it started. I grew up obviously in church. We were there all the time. You know how that
Right.
goes. Your kids know how that goes. But I loved it. I loved getting to help take down tables and chairs and set up the coffee carts on Sunday mornings. I knew the security code to the church and would go early with my dad and help unlock things. I thought that was so fun and so cool. So ministry in general was always kind of on my heart. That just made sense. I didn't really see how a future would make sense without being in ministry. I think this is just what you do. Honestly, God had to pull me back at some pieces of my story to be content with not being in vocational ministry. There was a season of life where I was very discontent to have a normal job because I felt like ministry was the only thing worthy. And God had to work in my heart to humble myself that being an active member of a local church and then being in a secular job and being intentional with those relationships with people who don't know Jesus is also a blessing in some ways, and to take advantage of when I'm around unbelievers, which doesn't happen as much on staff at a church, right?
Yep.
And so there was a season of life where I needed to take advantage of that and be content with that. And so anyways, God has worked in my heart throughout the years, and I went to Bible college. I went to Bible college. I got a bachelor's degree in missions. And so my heart was pretty much set on missions for a while, and God had to kind of humble me again of missions. International is good. And I think we all need to be involved with that in some capacity, but maybe that doesn't look like going abroad right now. I graduated in 2019, 2020, all these doors slammed shut for international missions, right? So a lot of plans that me and Garrett had set at one point were just completely closed off at that point. And so finding, again, like contentment and purpose of the fact that I have neighbors and I have coworkers that God has asked me to be faithful to share the gospel with them now, instead of just being grumpy that I can't go where I thought we were going to go someday, has been a big part of my growth and journey in this. And then faithfully, I was working became a mom. I was working at home, had kids in our home that I was helping watch while I also got to take care of my own. And Pastor Steve, sorry, that's you, Pastor Todd. Pastor Todd.
You don't got to call me Pastor Steve. I'm sitting right here. You just call me Steve. You know?
Sorry,
Right,
Pastor Todd
Pastor
called
Todd,
me and said, hey, would you and Garrett come to our office? And me and Garrett had speculations. We were way off of what we thought was going to happen that day. Neither of us saw this coming.
A little church discipline,
Yeah,
maybe, or
I
something.
didn't know. Yes, there was so many questions and guesses, and we were very off. But he called us in and just shared his heart for opening up this spot. This role at Antioch had not existed previously, but I think God had laid that on his heart years in advance to when he called us into his office that morning. But he just laid out that he wanted it to be a female. He was very clear that that was something he felt God has gifted women in, with a nurturing role with little kids. And I still don't actually know why he thought of me or got my name. I didn't have my resume out here. You guys really have only seen me serving in like capacities at the church, but you guys really didn't know me that well. And so he called me in though and was like, my heart has been set and I want to ask you, but are you even interested? Right. That was the first meeting.
Yes.
And I said in the meeting, I said, I am interested, but we need to pray about this. Right. And that wasn't a cop-out answer. Garrett at the time was working at Walmart and he was well overdue for a promotion, right? He was doing fantastic. And I am his wife, but I also believe that he was doing fantastic, right? He was ready for this promotion. And so actually just a few months before that meeting with Todd, he had applied for a job in Ohio. And we were looking at houses. I was contacting pastors that we knew for churches in the area. Like I convinced myself we were moving to Ohio. And then he got down to the final 2 candidates on paper. Obvious choice, Garrett. He's going to get the job. Like I started planning packing boxes. Like I convinced myself we were going to Ohio, and then he didn't get the job, and I was discouraged for him.
Sure.
I think that just so. Anyways, he put his name back out in another bucket for a job in a different place. I think it was like Minnesota or something. I don't know. Yeah. And he didn't get that one. And so just continually, we're like, man, what is happening? Todd called us into his office. And so we had to pray about it because he'd have to pull his name out of that hat. He couldn't keep looking for abroad jobs if we were going to take this one. And so that was a decision we had to agree on. But we did. And we prayed about it, and Garrett was like, I think this is what you've wanted for a long time. He knew me.
Sure.
And we love Antioch, and that made sense. And so he was like, you know what, I can hold out for a year. We'll see how we feel in a year. Maybe you hate it. Maybe we find something else. And so we called Pastor Todd back, said yes. He worked on writing up a job description that we're still editing today, actually. But he called us back in, and we said yes. And so we came in April. And then just to jump ahead a little, God's worked in my husband's life because now he doesn't even work at Walmart anymore. And now that we've settled into Kansas City, he's an officer with KCPD. And that's a cool part. Too. It's so exciting. He's doing so good at this job. And it kind of comes full circle. He was an officer when we met. So here we are, Officer Walker again. But I just...
Maybe he can write you some fines, because of those kind of things now, too.
Oh, goodness, yeah. It's just cool to see... that rejection that happened didn't make sense at the time. But looking back, I can't imagine us being anywhere else today than Kansas City and at Antioch specifically. And that was God's kindness it feels, maybe this is blasphemous, I don't know, but like the story of Pharaoh's heart getting hardened kind of felt like that boss that told Garrett no. It didn't really make sense that he wouldn't have just said yes. I believe God worked that so that we would stay here because I think we were ready to go. Had he gotten that job, I think we were moving. And so it's cool to see that was discouraging in the moment, but man, how far we've come in just those 2 years is cool that God has worked this. So that's kind of what got us here.
Thanks for sharing that because I think people listening to the podcast, you go through those seasons where you're having to learn to be content where God has placed you at. And doors, if you want to use that analogy, doors seem to be closing, that it's like, why isn't this door opening? It would make sense for us to go that direction. But to see God's faithfulness in that now, again, you've been faithful to the Lord. The Lord obviously has been faithful to you guys. Absolutely. And now to see where you're at today is really, I think would be encouraging for those watching and listening to the podcast that just keep being faithful.
That's right.
Again, it's not easy, right? You said, there was hard
some
days there and wondering what God's doing. Obviously, we were praying the opposite. I remember that of when Garrett was applying to all those things and Pastor Todd had brought your name and we had talked about it and we really wanted you to be on staff at Antioch, and we were praying the opposite, that God would work it different. So, sometimes people can just be praying the opposite. It's like, I guess we had
Who
more
was the
pull.
more faithful? Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. We did. That's blasphemous
that's
for
funny.
sure right there. But the idea, right?
Yes,
that God was being faithful to you in the midst of disappointments and plans that we have that sometimes don't go the way that we want. God's still being faithful.
It's true.
So let's talk a little bit about your walk with the Lord. So what does a daily walk with the Lord look like in Micaela's life that could encourage those, again, maybe even through the seasons that you went through? How did you keep your heart close to the Lord, not getting too hard-hearted towards the Lord? How does that work for you?
This year I've unashamedly stolen a page straight out of Pastor Todd's playbook here. And I bought a Bible for Carter. And so I'm reading through chronologically this year, and each chapter that I read, I write just a short prayer in the margins for Carter, which he can't read yet. It sounds a little silly, but in some ways it makes perfect sense that I'm doing this. I hope that one day he grows up to read it and appreciate it and enjoy it. But even if he doesn't, this has been so good for my heart because, I mean, he's a 4-year-old boy with a lot of energy. And there are some days I feel like he wakes up with the determination to push my buttons in every way possible, right? But I have found that starting my morning with 20 minutes in the Word, listening to what God has to say, but also reading for the purpose of how can I use this to encourage my son when he's older, and praying over my son for 15, 20 minutes in the morning, then it's a lot harder to turn around and just bite his head off, right? I find myself so much more like gracious and patient with him. And this is not perfect.
No, sure.
We still say sorry a lot in our home, right? But it has been good for me to pray over my son, intentionally praying the word over my son. So that this year has been really cool. And again, I did not come up with that. Todd shared that he does that with his grandkids. And when he told us last year that he was doing that, my first thought was, I want one. Like, how cool that a grandparent or parent would love and pray over you enough. But then my second thought was, I could do that. And so last year, Todd had asked our kids' staff to go through the Everyday Gospel by Paul David Tripp, which we've had excerpts given to us at Christmas and Easter, but we went through the year of it. And that was the first time I had read through the Bible in a year since like college. My devotions were scattered. As a mom of youngs, that's an excuse sometimes, because I am doing it now, but it also felt very valid at the time that sometimes it was just a verse in the morning, a psalm that could just cling to for the day. And that was what we were able to give in those seasons. But last year, Todd had challenged us to do it. And I think having the accountability once a week when we'd check in to be like, how was the reading, was really helpful. I wanted to do it for myself and for the Lord. I did it a little bit for Pastor Todd too, if I'm being honest. But it was good to get back in that discipline, to set a routine. Now my kids know, like Carter he'll wake up in the morning, let me grab my caramel coffee, and then he'll say, let me go grab my Bible for you. And he'll run and hand it to me. And he's asked, can I write in this when I get older? Absolutely. And so my kids are watching this routine take place. And I think last year was really good to set the bar and also remind myself that I can do this. This is worth the time and effort that it takes to do this. And so this year I'm doing it more on a solo trek at this point, but it's been really good and really faithful. And that's probably one of my bigger ones. I think too, like my son is in Cubbies this year and they have to memorize little verses. And that has also just reminded myself of the privilege, but also the importance of memorizing scripture. I think having that in your heart so that you don't have to flip through and try to find something in the midst of like a struggle, to just have like God's word ready to go for whatever battle is coming your way, has been a discipline that I took seriously in high school. It fell off a little bit and it's been coming back. And that has been a really sweet thing to get to memorize with my son. Because I can't quiz him in the car if I don't know what the verse is for the week, right? So I have to know his Cubby verses, but also like for myself, how can I hide God's word in my heart?
Yeah, and I love that, using what the kids are doing in Awana
absolutely
to help you in your own walk with the Lord is it's a great way to.
I'm not ashamed to say that that's
doesn't have
been
to
helpful.
be separate.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
I think that's a good reminder for us that if you've got kids, younger kids, and you're going through whether it's the Sunday morning gospel project or it's the Wednesday night Awana stuff, using the things that they're learning to encourage your faith is a great thing to do. It doesn't have to be, again,
sure,
beautiful to do what you're doing, reading the Bible, writing prayers to Carter, following Pastor Todd's example in that, but it can also just be going along with them and learning God's word with them. So, well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing the ups and the downs. Right, that it's not. I think so oftentimes people think of our walk with the Lord being this sort of direct line, and it's always getting better and better. And And we know through the seasons you go
Right.
through, it's ups and it's downs, and
That's
there's
right.
sometimes all you can throw in is a verse of the day,
Right.
in your heart, and then you got to get to the crying baby, or
Yes.
get to the laundry, or
Yeah.
get to work. And so the
Yeah.
Lord is gracious in all of that.
So gracious.
But thanks
So
for
thankful.
sharing your walk with
Yeah.
the Lord with us. All right, a couple more things. So let us know what you do here at Antioch.
Oh,
right?
sure.
So what is the elementary ed director?
Okay.
And with that, I want you to tell our church family and those watching, like, what is your heart for parents, for kids in that area that you lead? And then I'll have one final question for you.
Okay. So the elementary ed director, again, we are kind of writing this job as we go. We keep finding other things that this would be cool if you took this over, right? But
Isn't that how it goes in church life,
kind
right?
of.
It's like your job description is always open.
It's ever changing. Yeah. It's written in pencil, not in pen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like physically speaking, in our building, the elementary education like wing is upstairs, right?
Okay.
So I'll say upstairs a lot. Same thing. That's K through 5th is upstairs on Sunday morning. And then downstairs is birth through pre-K, which is our early education, which Jennifer Hudson leads. Right. So I'm over the upstairs on Sunday mornings. Our mission statement is the same for kids as it is for Antioch, right? Our heart is that we are leading generations to make disciples of Jesus Christ everywhere. Very clear how that fits in with kids ministry, because we have the next generation in our classrooms every Sunday. And so a part of what I do is just making sure our teachers and our team that is leading every single week has what they need, so that they're not running around trying to make copies, that they can just sit and focus on the kids for the hour and a half that they have them in their classroom, to share the gospel with them and meet them where they're at with kindergartners. What crafts can they do that engages them and helps them remember the story? And with 5th graders, what questions can we ask? What good questions can we have to get them thinking and to get them applying the word to their life as they're getting ready for junior high, right? And so meeting the needs as they go, I just help kind of equip my teachers, right? Our classrooms would open whether I'm there or not, because our teachers run the show. I'm just here in the background to feed them donuts and get them coffees and make sure they have an air pump for the 9 square ball, right? Like those are practically what I'm doing a lot of. Part of what I do is also recruiting volunteers, right? We are growing, our kids ministry is growing, and it's an awesome privilege to even just get to watch this, but even to be a part of it is really cool. But we need teachers, and so we have a pretty strict process to get in our kids ministry to teach. There's a background check and reference checks. They have to do an abuse video, but we also do an interview now. And so myself or Pastor Todd or Jennifer, we will bring any teacher that wants to teach into an interview where we talk about their expectations, what we expect out of them. We make sure that they're a safe person to be around kids, but that takes time, and that takes prayerful consideration. Would this person be good in our kids ministry? Maybe they shouldn't be serving in kids ministry. And so that's a big part of what I do, is just making sure it's a safe environment for the kids and making sure they have what they need. I'm also over Awana on Wednesdays, but it's a very similar. I'm just there to make sure the leaders have what they need. I am the sub. I call myself in to back up sometimes, but for the most part, I'm just there to make sure that everyone has what they need to lead generations, and that they're not, the logistics are not getting in the way of them getting to do what they're called to do. So that's part of what I do. I think my heart, to answer that part of the question, obviously for the kids, we want them to know Jesus, and we want them to walk away knowing that God loves them so much that he sent his son for them. We tell our teachers that a lot. They might not tell you exactly what you taught that day. It might have been a crazy day, but if they walk away knowing that we love them at Antioch, but that God loves them, you're doing a good job as a teacher, right? Yes. And so our heart is that kids know that. Elementary is also a special time where we're planting seeds, we're watering seeds that have been planted, but we also see God calling a lot of elementary hearts to him. We see a lot of seeds come to fruition in elementary, and that's a sweet thing we get to witness. I think there's a sweet spot there where they're old enough to recognize their sin, but still young enough, and that childlike faith that you read about, they have that. And I just feel like that harvest is fresh right now. And that's very cool. So that's my heart for the kids, is that they walk away out of our ministry knowing more about Jesus. Seeds have been planted, watered faithfully. Some of them have grown through that, but that's a big heart for the kids. I think for the parents, they know if they've been coming here for a while, they have heard from you, from myself, from emails that we send out from Pastor Todd, from meetings. They know that they are the primary disciple makers of their kids. But I don't know if they've all bought in. I don't know if they're all acting as if that's true.
Sure.
Again, if they're listening, if they're reading any of the emails I send, they know that that's true. But I don't know if they all quite take that active role. And my heart is to see parents take on an active role of discipleship in their kids again, because we don't have them for very long. On Sundays and Wednesdays, we are doing our best to make that a gospel just saturated time for their children, that they're safe, that parents can come and get equipped in Sunday sermon or in an Antioch group or wherever they go while their kids are with us. We want them to go and feel equipped, but then we want them those other days and hours of the week to be the ones leading those conversations. And I want parents to feel both equipped, but also challenged to take that up, because I do believe that's their role. My role as a parent myself too, of that's what we're called to do. This is our time, and especially elementary and under, like, we are supposed to be taking good stewardship of our family's calendars. I think that's a big part of it is we need to take an active role in how much our kids are involved with extracurriculars, because you will only get less time with them as they get older. I've had several seasoned moms warn me that as a 4 and 2-year-old, I'm in the trenches some days, but this is the most time I will ever get to spend with my kids. And I want to take advantage of that. And I think even in elementary, that should and still is true, that we have a calling to guard our children's calendars and schedules, that Sundays, this is what we do. And I want parents to take that active role and not feel like they're already chained to a schedule for extracurriculars at this point, but to still feel that weight, that this is their job, is to disciple their children well during this time that we have them. So that would be my heart for the parents. So
well, I love your heart for our parents. It's right on path with what we would desire to see at Antioch. And I also love your heart for kids too, right? I love that simple, like, we want them to know that we love them, but more importantly, when they walk out of our kids' ministry, we want them to know that God loves them, and He loved them enough to send Jesus. And, so thanks for sharing your heart with us today about parents, about the kids, and so thankful that God brought you to Antioch. Thanks. And you lead really well. You're doing a great job leading in our kids' ministry. And as Todd comes to pastoral meetings and gives glowing reports about you and what God is doing through you. And so, again, I love your heart, too, that you're there to assist those who serve in our church. And that's what I think God has called us to do as pastors, directors, to serve the people that He's brought to Antioch. We're to equip the saints to do the work of ministry. That's right. And so I love hearing you say that, too, where it's like that's our heart for those who serve, is we're here to serve them so that they can use the gifts that God's given them to impact the next generation. All right, last question, and then we'll land the plane here. When you hear the term leading generations, obviously that's in our podcast, Leading Generation Podcast. You mentioned our mission statement for our church, Leading Generations, to make disciples of Jesus Christ everywhere. So when you hear the term leading generations, I think it probably ties in with your heart for kids and parents.
Probably.
But what comes to mind when you hear that?
First thing is motherhood. I think I have a role in my home before my role at this church to disciple my kids. Biblically speaking, I think that's true and accurate. And so I am leading this next generation. And as a mom of a small children that can't read their Bibles yet, right? I think that looks like being intentional in the car rides to point out the sunset. I love just saying, like, wow, God is such an artist. Look at that beautiful sunset. And my son has started to ask to roll the windows down, and his exact words are, so I can look at the beautiful world God made. And I'm like, it's so cute. And I love that.
So cute.
But I think that's part of it is just in this early years, I don't know what it looks like in a few years yet. Not there yet. But right now, leading generations for me personally just means pointing out God's goodness, God's handiwork, God's intentionality on how He made my kids and their bodies and their minds, and just pointing those things out faithfully through the mundane parts of meal prepping and cleaning the home. And we get to clean this home to invite people in. And, I just being intentional with how I talk to my kids is a big part of leading generations for me. Ministerially, when I think of like the church wide, when I hear that, I think of people like Sherry Bruto, faithful leaders who I am now a director over. Some of these leaders who have been serving in kids ministry longer than I've been alive. And I think,
isn't that amazing?
It's one of the most intimidating parts of coming in on staff in this role, truly, was like, these are champions of the faith, people who have told me, like, I changed your husband's diapers as they're holding my newborn son. And like Sherry's eyes were like, I use her because I remember dropping Carter off in nursery. First time mom, a little nerve wracking to drop off your baby with a stranger. First time I walk in and she grabs him up and had like tears in her eyes and was like, I remember holding Garrett at this age. And I believe that that's true. And like, I think of our leaders. We have so many leaders. I can't even name them all who have been so faithful. They're not doing this for the free donuts on Sundays, right? Like that would not keep them in their ministry. They would not have kept Garrett through elementary and still been serving if it was just for the snacks. But they're doing it because they believe that this is important, that we are going to invest in this next generation. And I think we have so many seasoned parents and leaders and teachers who really do believe in that mission. And it's a privilege to serve with them, partner with them in ministry, to get to help just make copies for them. That is truly a privilege because they are doing exactly what I think God has placed them for and gifted them for. And it's so cool to watch someone lead generations of a family and still be serving in that capacity. That's cool. And I think our church does a really good job of that. I think our pastoral team, even just the legacy of how long our pastors have stayed in staff. I think our church has really bought into that too. And we see that in our kids ministry as we see leaders who have been there through generations of kids and are still there. I think that's special. And it's something that I don't take for granted here. So
very good. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for being on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Today. It's been a joy to get to talk to you. I love serving alongside you. It's been a great coming up on 2 years here, and look forward to many more years, Lord willing, together serving the Lord here at Antioch, getting to serve people like the Bruto family, and to continue to see that generational faithfulness to the Lord here. So thanks for spending some time with us today. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. So glad you took some time to be with us today. I know this interview has been encouraging to your heart, and I pray that you will continue to be faithful to lead generations to make disciples of Jesus Christ everywhere here at Antioch. We love you. Have a great rest of your week.